Hi folks, we're going to take a look at this question here where we have to come up with a sinusoidal function to model this situation. Okay, so let's read the question. A yo-yo has a string of length 60 centimeters. The yo-yo moves down, then up in 2 seconds. The player's hand is 1 meter above the ground, and we want to determine the equation of the height above the ground with respect to time, starting at the maximum height. Okay, so let's pinpoint here some of the important things. So the length of the yo-yo is 60 centimeters. Okay, we'll see how that's helpful. Okay, it moves down then up in 2 seconds. So a full motion of the yo-yo down then up would be 1 cycle. So here this essentially gives us the period. Okay, the player's hand is 1 meter above the ground. Okay, and we want to determine an equation for the height with respect to time, and we want to start at the maximum. Okay, so let's see how we can use this to come up with the equation. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw myself a diagram of what's going on. So we want to measure everything from the ground. Okay, so the yo-yo is going to start where the person's hand is, and we know that that's 1 meter from the ground. Okay, now since the string length is given in centimeters, instead of using meters, I'm going to use centimeters. So I know that there's 100 centimeters for every meter. Okay, so if this is where it's starting, it would seem as though the max is 100 centimeters. Okay, let's figure out the min. So the string is 60 centimeters long. So the yo-yo is going to go down to a minimum height. Okay, let's figure this out. If this is 60 and the total is 100, the minimum height will be 100 minus 60, which is 40. Okay, so the min here is going to be 40 centimeters above the ground. Now once we have the max and min, we know that we can calculate the axis and the amplitude. Okay, so the axis is that line between these two, so it's going to be the average. So that's why we do max plus min divided by 2. Okay, so here we have 100 plus 40 is 140, divided by 2 is 70. Alright, now the amplitude, okay, is half the distance between the max and the min. Now, you probably could figure that out. You figure, well, the max is here, the min, it's 60 centimeters in length, so half of that should be 30. Let's actually calculate it to be sure. So the amplitude is the max minus the min divided by 2. 100 minus 40 is 60, divided by 2 is indeed 30. Okay? And the last characteristic is the period. But they give that to us directly because they tell us it goes down, then back up, so 1 full cycle in 2 seconds. Okay, so the period here is 2 seconds. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll figure out how to relate this to the parts of the equation. Okay, now since we're starting at the maximum height, we know we're going to use positive cosine. So our equation will look something like this. Positive a cos of bx and then plus k. Okay, so the a value here is just our amplitude. So there's a. Our k value is the axis. So there's our k value. Okay, now in order to find b, we have to use the period. So the b value, if we use our formula, is just 360 divided by the period of 2. So 360 divided by 2 is 180. Okay, so now we have all the information we need. So now we can write our equation. So y is equal to the a value, which is 30, cosine, because we're starting at the maximum, b times x, so 180 times x, and then plus k, which is 70. Okay, and because there's a context to these variables, they actually represent something, we really need to say what they represent. Okay, so x is the time in seconds. Okay, and y is the height above the ground in centimeters. Okay, so that's the height in centimeters. So you see how I was able to solve this problem without drawing a graph. You certainly could if you think it would be helpful, but what I found very helpful was to draw the diagram. So when you're given a situation here, try to identify the important pieces of information, draw a diagram of the situation if you think it'll be helpful, and then start determining all your 5 characteristics. And lastly, make sure you know which function to use. In this case here, we knew because they told us to start at the maximum. So we're using cosine. Okay, that's it for this one.